why Atlanta is the new age Boondocks.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there. We don't use the N-word in this house.
Granddad, you said the word nigga 46 times yesterday.
Nigga hush.
Imagine all the controversy and chaos of Twitter, in particular Black Twitter, but reimagined in a world of anime with constant cinematic references, all brought to you by Adult Swim.
Okay. Whatever you say.
But what made Boondocks really different to the other shows was its use of social commentary, its ability to stay up to date with current trends while somehow remaining ahead of its time. It covered our favourite topics on the channel: race, class, television and film, and it took us through the chaotic journeys of the problematic, ageless child, Riley Freeman.
Describe Riley Freeman in one word.
I say real nigga.
Real nigga is 2 words.
I know it's 2 words, nigga. Real niggas don't follow instruction.
Riley was always counterbalanced by his older, mature, level-headed, voice of reason brother, Huey.
I mean, everything we see is a false reality. It's like Big Brother, The Matrix, whatever you want to call it. While we're watching each other, they're watching us. All the time.
Who had a freedom writer essence and spirit. But what made Boondocks so legendary to me was the featuring characters like Uncle Ruckus, who played a caricature of the racial slur and stereotype Uncle Tom.
My name is Uncle Ruckus, no relation. I want to sing y'all a brand new song I just wrote called Don't Trust Them New Niggas Over There.
His character was an outspoken, absurdly written Black Republican caretaker who hated the fact that Riley and Huey moved into the suburban neighborhood where he works, as he believes they're essentially too ghetto or too black in his eyes. Those two things are synonymous, as the boys are originally coming from a working class home in Chicago. The show was the pinnacle of controversial television, as they use explicit and unfiltered extended metaphors to emphasize that blackness is not a monolith and unapologetically satirized America's historical and cultural racial injustice. In 2014, The Boondocks was abruptly cancelled after its 4th season with no clear reason, although most roads lead to production difficulties and the passing of John Witherspoon, who voiced the lead character called Grandad, who played Riley and Huey's only parent. Fast forward, 2 years later, Donald Glover gave us the live-action series, Atlanta.
I'm a 35-year-old white man.
Atlanta follows Ern, struggling unemployed dad of one who finds a job by becoming his rapper cousin Paperboy's manager. They are often accompanied on their journeys by Ern's baby mum, Van, and Paperboy's trusted friend, who we all fall in love with, the stoner-type character, Darius.
That's Darius. Cookie?
Played by Lakeith Stanfield, who you might recognize from Get Out.
Shit, it's Justin Bieber.
The Boondocks in Atlanta have an absurdist tone that is both existential and highly purposeful. Both shows live in a world of constant contradiction while somehow making perfect sense. When thinking of this term, the play Waiting for Godot comes to mind. A play about 2 men on a journey where they wander the streets waiting for an unknown character or entity named Godot to arrive. These 2 men engage in nonsensical dialogue with little to no context of who they are or where they're coming from or even exactly where they're going. All we know is that they're waiting for Godot. The writer of this play, Samuel Beckett, made a point to emphasize that Godot was not intended to be emblematic of a god figure, and instead that any interpretation would in essence be wrong because the play is about nothingness. This absurd approach to visual art is reminiscent in both Donald Glover's Atlanta and Aaron McGruder's The Boondocks, as each episode is like a fever dream where, despite multiple readings and interpretations, you can't help but think confusion and chaos seems to be part of the message anyway. But like the 2 men in Waiting for Godot, the characters of these shows have no long-winded backstory. Riley and Huey are kid brothers, that's it. And Ern is his rapper cousin Paperboy's manager, that's it. There's no gaudy narrative embellishing these characters or super complex double meaning that is needed to follow the story. Actually, if anything, it's the opposite. Both narratives are extremely unremarkable, which adds to the comic enjoyment of the frenzy of the everyday life around them. In doing this, the audience, along with the characters, are constantly trying to make sense of something that as a narrative makes no sense, but is a Pandora's box of philosophical interpretation. This all adds to what makes these shows have such comedic effect. Immanuel Kant remarks that something absurd must be present in whatever it is to raise a hearty convulsive laugh. Laughter is an affection arising from a strained expectation being suddenly reduced to nothing. So essentially, both shows encourage us to think by not using much thought at all. Another thing that these shows have in common is the exploration of race and class through the use of set. The obvious difference in the two is that Boondocks is an animation, has its own universe with its own rules, but despite this, both shows use the setting and background of each shot to either contrast or reinforce the social status of the characters. The Boondocks is set in a suburb in Maryland and centered around Granddad's house. The area that Riley and Huey live in is predominantly white, thus Riley and Huey stick out like a sore thumb, but this is furthered by the illustration of their quintessentially black hair. Static close-ups often makes Riley visually intrusive on the screen and further emphasizes the idea of displacement. This is reflective of the class connotations of blackness as being intrusive or ill-fitting when in middle-class spaces. But through Riley's outspoken nature and unapologetic blackness, it could be interpreted as the writer making a statement that despite the social connotations of class, much like Riley, black voices have shown they can break class boundaries and establish themselves fearlessly in these spaces without apologizing for their culture or without feeling like an outsider. In contrast to this, Atlanta Season 1 is set in the hood as a backdrop to emphasize the impoverished ideology of blackness. Here, the set is in the foreground of the visual analogy of class as opposed to the characters being in the foreground. An example of this is the first season had an emphasis on the sofa in Paperboy's back garden. This could be seen as microcosmic of a static displacement. The sofa is an indoor object placed outside in a deserted yard. Much like this object, the characters are misplaced in an environment that doesn't give them enough of a chance to thrive because of lack of access and resources, although as we see in the later seasons, they have so much talent and potential. In both shows, the lead characters are three men who are essentially family. An exploration of black masculinity lays at the heart of their interactions, and a contentious subdivision of this masculinity that is explored is queerness and interactions with the LGBTQ+ community. Riley's character often plays the role of the voice of Black Twitter personified, excellent at starting a debate and articulating their perspective, but often clouded with brash homophobia, sexism, and prejudice wrapped in such ridiculous claims and accusations that it breeds pure comedy.
Damn, Morpheus, what you about to do? I love you, man. Nigga, you gay.
When Huey hugs Riley here and shows his brother affection, he is reinforcing the value of brotherhood and setting a precedent for men showing affection to the other men in their life that they love. It's often an uncomfortable topic in a lot of black communities for fear of association with queerness. Riley briefly emphasizes this by calling Huey gay, but in doing so he trivializes such claims in the context of two men hugging or showing brotherly affection, as his character is quintessentially just ridiculous and foolish.
Boy, are you stupid?
I don't think so.
This claim only reflects this. Huey's lack of rebuttal reinforces the ridiculousness and insignificance of such a claim, as it bears no real relevance to this moment, thus not giving credence to this homophobic ideology. In the Boondocks, this is touched on quite a lot through the rapper Gangsta-licious, who Riley becomes friends with.
You never catch a list, rolling with no beards, cause bitches ain't shit. This on my crew is thick, a bunch of knuckleheads.
Beat is alright.
Bald heads and dreads, nigga, we hating on them hoes like we hit the feds. Bitch, can't you see? Fall back away from me. Me and my niggas bump just in the VIP. Now bump it to the left and bump it to the right, cause when you do the homie, nigga, got to do it right.
Oh my god, this is crazy.
You the low man, you
Gangsta was a rapper in a space that is notoriously homophobic, the hip-hop industry. You only have to listen to rappers of the time like DMX and their lyrics that would be playing at every club to notice this. However, Gangsta was a parody of many of the rappers in the early 2000s who were simply hypocrites. They paraded their masculinity by beating their chests, all the while devaluing women and suggesting the worthlessness of the female species. Interestingly, for men who pride themselves in straightness, they seem to completely hate the opposite sex. The writers troll such behavior by insinuating that they potentially may be closer to the very thing they try to reject. While this may seem like queer baiting and trivializing legitimate queerness, it is instead using the very thing these men fear, being gay, as a way to expose their constant contradictions, and by likening them to the thing they like to distance themselves from. While I don't believe that it was intended to make a mockery of queerness itself, but more so a mockery of being so adamantly against it through false parades of hypermasculinity.
Your hair was brown.
I remember. Honey, I was in a completely different space back then.
Nah, it's nice now. I like it. You always did like to switch it up.
I can move if you want.
Yeah, I know.
I remember Kevin. He was loud.
Larry came with us to the movies that time. I know you remember the movies. We used to get freaky in there all the time. Remember that?
Quiet.
Oh, don't act, girl. You know we used to get it in. Hey, where you stay at now? Hey, man, what's your problem, man?
No problem. I said, I can move if you want.
I ain't ask you to move, nigga. I'm trying to talk to my girl. You acting all weird and shit.
Yo, girl.
Yeah, man. Yo, this is my ex, Lisa, man. We used to talk back after my mom's kicked me out the house, you know.
My nigga, that's a man.
What? Nah, man, this is my ex.
Your ex-girlfriend a man. Why you think she in jail with the men? She'd be on the other side. Nigga, you gay.
Nah, man, she... So you think I'm gay?
No, I
This nigga gay as hell.
Shut the hell up, man. Y'all niggas is tripping. I ain't gay. Y'all niggas fuck guys up in here anyway, man.
No, that ain't gay. That's just jail. You was on the outside fucking booty holes.
Sexuality is a spectrum. You can really do whatever you want.
Nah, that boy gay as hell.
I'm gonna stab your whole ass when we get upstairs to themselves, man. Nigga, sit down.
Johnny, calm down.
Everyone get shut the fuck up now! I know what y'all think she is, but I ain't on that faggot shit, man. Stop being weird, nigga!
I'm not. I'm trying. No, man. I'm just sitting here.
In this scene, Donald Glover's character, Ern, is sitting in an Atlanta city jail, overhearing a conversation between two ex-lovers, one of whom is a trans woman. However, her ex doesn't seem to be familiar with this. On this scene, Tamisha Askew writes in The Real Atlanta representations of Black Southern culture, masculinity, and womanhood as seen in season 1 of the FX series Atlanta. Relating to this scene, I couldn't put it better. This is an essential moment in the show because outside of the series, Donald Glover is an award-winning rap artist and pioneer in the hip-hop and black community. It's not every day that an artist of his status uses their platform to support matters of sexuality and gender that are often considered separate issues from blackness. Just as shows have created a generalization about LGBTQ individuals, so have representations of black men in regards to same-gendered loving. Glover provides a conversation on black male sexuality in an unconventional yet practical and realistic way by creating the dialogue while sitting in the holding area of an Atlanta city jail. These moments, and many more in Atlanta and Boondocks, tackle issues regarding the black community through humour in a way that is both stimulating and almost like a cold, long acid trip. But regardless, the outcome is the complex conversations that need to be had, delivered in a way that rouses up conversation. Both shows with their similarities and differences, raise questions. They're not always answered, which encourages us as the audience to actively theorize the best solutions. And this is the form of stimulating experience that I personally love about television. Which is why I would argue that if we don't get another season of the Boondocks, Childish Gambino's series Atlanta is the closest thing that we have in spirit. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Do you see these similarities in these two shows or not? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below.